Clifford recounts our encounter with Trump at the Navida Golf Resort. A story captured on page 27. Historically for us, following up the events of yesterday, and of course, this very first president to go through this process, former president to go this process of indictment. And so we'll be following up closely, and I'll be giving you updates on the same as we continue with the broadcast right here in the country. It is about the Ruto-Raila clash. That is on the question of the ceasefire. It appeared like it would be an easy road. That is on Sunday when we're getting that address. But to our surprise or our dismay, it looks like it's not going to be as easy as it sounds. The hardliners on the side of Azimio One Kenya Alliance, as well as on the side of the Kenya Kwanza, perhaps making it difficult for these two gentlemen to get to a spot where then they can have these conversations, because, well, as they would rightfully say, it would be necessary to incorporate many faces on this process. And it is not just the Right Honorable Raila Odinga that proposes this, but we have also seen, pundits also weighing in on the matter and saying that, well, beyond this bipartisan approach that has been proposed by the president and to be done at the level of parliament, there is need to incorporate other stakeholders or other people so that then the process appears to be one that represents the sound and the voice of the common mwananchi. We have seen the likes of, the presidential candidate Mwaure, that is David, who also sent his request to say that perhaps he should be incorporated in this very conversation. It will be interesting to watch what really plays out, even as the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and his team, that is of Azimio, are saying that in the event that, there are no early signs of a possibility of this really being addressed in the best way they know how, then unfortunately they will have to go back to the people, and that then means demonstrations on the streets. Azimio chief takes issue with the president's statement on Sunday, and as well arguing that it fell short of what had been agreed upon by their team of the negotiations. And so perhaps to bring to the fore the fact that this is not something that just happened from the blues, but yes, emissaries have been there and they have been having conversations as of course pertaining to that, but he says that they have not had a chance to sit down with the president himself, and so this should of course address the allegations, or perhaps this feeling that maybe the conversation was there between the two of them. And he insists that Parliament cannot address all their core issues, and that suggests a process akin to the 2008 National Accord. This is a story that is expounded on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Miranda sent my son home. I found his body at mortuary gate. This is quite unfortunate. A family from Gesima in Nyamira County is mourning their son who died in an accident as he traveled home from Miranda High School after he was sent home for feast. Protas Mugaka and the other 4 passengers died when their 14-seater matatu collided head-on with a trailer at Ambuko, few meters from Keroka town in Kisii County. May his soul rest in eternal peace. And also we condole with the family. That is quite a devastating story captured on page 12. On this other side, it's been a book series, and of course this by Isaac Hassan, former boss of the IEBC, and he recalls evening he decided he would announce the winner of the 2013 presidential election, and says that it really wasn't rosy for him between these key gentlemen, or perhaps these key parties that were vying then. And it's been a series of interesting revelations as to what really the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, or the commissions that oversee elections, have to, the tough times that they have to go through and the difficulties, and up to the level of the pronouncement of who really carries the day. President's big hustler nation headache. President William Ruto has inherited a ticking time bomb, as the number of joblessness in the country, of course, is hitting up, and that is like doubling in about 3 years, and they constitute the majority of the unemployed, taking the longest to find employment. And of course, the latest data by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, indicates that the number of unemployed youth, these are neither in education nor training, has grown by about 68% since 2019, as captured on page 6 and page 7. Indeed, quite damning revelations right there. And we ask ourselves, just what will it take for us to first of all also get, creative aspects that would incorporate the youth, but most importantly, accord majority of them the chance of employment. And as much as one would say that this is a global menace, well, we always uniquely relate to it based on what plays out for our nation. Those are the key stories that have been captured on the front page. Allow us to briefly look at what the People Daily details. And here we are. It says, now they agree, now they do not. Raila warns that Azimio will go back to trenches if talks are taken lightly. And Ruto, on the other side, says that only members of parliament can lead process, a view not shared by his rival. And as well, Wandai, Malala and Malala fail to see eye to eye. That is on these very matters that draw the red lines. It will be Azimio versus Kenya Kwanza. And, this goes back to the interest of the common mwananchi. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga also speaking to some of these matters that perhaps would appear as though they have been left behind. That is on the question of high cost of living. Just giving his proposals on how best the government should approach this matter. It's a developing story. We'll be having hardliners. If not hardliners, we will be having, members of the Kenya Kwanza as well as those ones of Azimio to give us their view on the same as we continue to unpack this process and cross fingers and hope that we will have them address this matter. Money for the aged to be released early. The cabinet has approved a proposal to release stipends for senior citizens and other social protection funds to beneficiaries. That is before civil servants are paid every month. Then the new program is to take effect from June the 1st. It will be a sigh of relief for a majority of these olders that really have had difficult times trying to access these funds that are slated, of course, in the government procedures. That is to make sure that they are catered for. And sometimes this taking so long before it is released that they have to take monies that have compiled after certain months, and so this, they say, would come in handy for them to be able to just take care of themselves here and there on a monthly basis. We will not get into any unconstitutional political agreements with the opposition. That is according to the President William Ruto in Rwanda yesterday upon that question by the journalists. And so we'll be following up as well to see what plays out. Those are the key stories as captured on what is the People Daily. Let me just have a look at the soft copy of the Standard newspaper to keep you up to tabs. The truth or my deal with Ruto. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga speaking to this. I think we have articulated to that, as well as Donald Trump in the dock. We have equally looked into that. We will expound it further as we continue with the broadcast. And on the other side, Coons Biden's fixer who struck bases for truce. That is the Kenya truce. And of course, we seek to see whether such was the case, in as much as Right Honorable Raila Odinga spoke to this. The man who quietly came to Kenya last week struck a basis for political truth and left without a word in the smooth process. Of course, we'll be looking to see or to get more details on whether indeed the U.S. played an instrumental role as to this. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga saying that, really we are not a colony of the U.S. and therefore the U.S. in their best way have no right perhaps to interfere with the activities in the country, but acknowledging the fact that they have gotten into that space of appreciating that they needed to speak to the matters that are playing out in the country. And the Right Honorable Raila Odinga says that should be celebrated. Kenyans faulted on power use, as well as a story that is captured on page 24, that is on the business segment of the Standard newspaper. It's not all been roses, it's quite expensive an affair, and I mean this power conversation continues to spur lots of anger as well as disappointment as to the Kenya Kwanza government. But then again, they maintain that in the best way they know how, they would come in handy to address the same. Another school in Kakamega shuts over tainted food, a story captured on page 7, and it's quite unfortunate that we have been receiving this report, and we hope that then we can have our students safe. Allow us to shift gears and look at some of the stories that we have prepared. And we start off with this one. President William Ruto insists there will be no handshake between him and the Azimio leader Raila Odinga. Speaking during a 2-day tour of Rwanda, the head of state has confirmed the bipartisan process will be addressed through Parliament as Gilbert Nalwa kicks off this bulletin.
Few days after the president called on Azimio leader Raila Odinga to call off demonstrations, there have been speculations of a possible handshake between President Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga.
In times like this, it is not a question of who is right and who is wrong. In times like this, you have to put your house in order.
President William Ruto, however, while visiting Rwanda, has dismissed claims of a possible handshake between him and Raila Odinga, stating that there shall be a discussion in Parliament involving members from both the political divide to settle the issues raised by the opposition.
That whatever issues that they had, there was democratic, constitutional, legal channels of raising those issues using the platform of Parliament in a bipartisan manner. And that is the offer I made to the opposition. You asked me a direct question whether there will be a handshake because of this situation. I want to tell you there will be no handshake.
The president reiterating that he has a responsibility as the head of state to ensure sanity prevails in the country.
And as president, I owe it to the people of Kenya to provide leadership. And on Sunday, I did ask the opposition to reconsider the demonstrations that they had undertaken.
In what seems like a rejoinder, Azimio leader Raila Odinga held a press conference and affirmed that he is not interested in a handshake deal with the Kenya Kwanza government, and neither is he ready to extend his hand to any government official.
We have never talked about a handshake. That is a language coming from the other side. They're the ones who have been saying, oh, these people, unataka tu handshake, nusu mukati, and so on. Take it to Mr. Gachagua. Tell me, I don't even want to shake his hands.
The president said the handshake arrangement is unconstitutional and undemocratic, as it undermines the system of checks and balances, where the opposition is tasked with the responsibility of playing an oversight to the government.
The history we have of the handshake is where there was a fusion of government and the opposition, and the results were very disastrous for Kenya. There wasn't any accountability. The whole system went rogue, and the people of Kenya do not want a situation where democracy is undermined.
Reporting for TV47, my name is Gilbert Nalwa.
And Azimio Coalition Party leader Raila Odinga has issued fresh demands to President William Ruto, which he must implement this week or face the return of mass protests. Odinga wants the bipartisan process to involve leaders outside Parliament, akin to the National Accord of 2008 that gave birth to the Grand Coalition government, while insisting that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission servers must be opened for dialogue to take place. And as Apollo Kamau reports, President William Ruto's UDA party has hit out at Odinga, accusing him of not being genuine and holding the process at ransom.
In what could trigger a fresh battle and hardening of positions between Kenya Kwanza and their Azimio rivals, stalling the much-needed dialogue on the outstanding issues. Azimio coalition leader Raila Odinga has thrown a spanner in the works, accusing President William Ruto of backtracking on their deal regarding the bipartisan process, while issuing fresh demands that the president must honor or face mass action next week.
We assure our people and Kenyans that our eyes are firmly on the ball, and reiterate that we shall go back to the people as the earliest sign of lack of seriousness by the other side. In other words, if the other side is not serious, we will go back to our people.
Top on the agenda in Odinga's demands is to vacate the president's proposal to have a pure bipartisan parliamentary process and involve leaders outside parliament, a move meant to accommodate his allies, a move akin to the 2008 National Accord, which led to a power-sharing deal between Odinga and former President Mwai Kibaki.
This process, we want it to be akin to the process that was led by Kofi Annan, that is we're going to have members of parliament, but they are going to sit outside parliament. They will negotiate and only take the final product to parliament as an accord, which will then be passed by Parliament.
President William Ruto's UDA party, through Secretary General Cleophas Malala, however hit back at Odinga, telling him to forget a process that is outside the purview of the Constitution. UDA further accused Odinga of holding the bipartisan parliamentary process suggested by the president at ransom, while adding he was not genuine from the onset, but had a blatant thirst for power through the back door.
That was not the basis of the understanding between the parties that were negotiating or talking between us. That statement fell far short of what had been agreed, and they know it. And that's why in our own statement, we reiterated firmly what was going to be the basis of our engagement with Kenya Kwanza.
Odinga has further protested what he said was tampering with the IEBC servers, which he insists must be opened before any talks can take place. On the cost of living, the opposition wants the cost of unga to be pegged at 100 shillings, the recent increment of electricity cost frozen, and the government to waive all medical bills for those injured in the protests, while footing the bill for those who lost their lives. Azimio's fresh demands before any dialogue can take place leaves President William Ruto in a catch-22 on how he responds to the new conditions or face mass action next week. Apul Kamau, TV47 in Nairobi.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga and President William Ruto having decided to seek a bipartisan process, that is to find a solution to demands by the opposition to streamline the independent electoral and boundaries selection panel. There are fears that cracks could emerge in both sides of the political divide, with both Azimio and Kenya Kwanza foot soldiers maintaining their hard stance. Our reporter Flora Limuki has talked to leaders across the political divide, and as she reports, the Kenya Kwanza government and the Azimio leaders have dissenting voices, majority saying the process may not achieve much, a matter that could jeopardize the bipartisan approach.
Kidogo bado, eh?
The recent decision to ostensibly have a dialogue between President William Ruto and Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga could have dire consequences within the two coalitions, with supremacy battles likely to emerge.
My suggestion is that this matter can be handled in Parliament by a bipartisan parliamentary process.
In view of the foregoing, we stand down our demonstrations for Monday, that is tomorrow, April 3rd, 2023.
A possible fallout within the Kenya Kwanza coalition looms as the Mount Kenya leaders who are loyalists to Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua are likely to feel sidelined if Raila Odinga comes to the equation. Most of them were critics of the 2018 handshake between former President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, which led to a fallout within the Mount Kenya region leaders and even the then Deputy President William Ruto. The second in command, Rigathi Gachagua, has been at the forefront rejecting a possible truce between Odinga and Ruto, as he opines that this will have dire ramifications on their development agenda.
I may have my own interest from the Kenya Kwanza side, or the Kenya Kwanza interest. Azimio may have their own interests that may not necessarily, the partisan interest may not necessarily be the interest of the Kenyan people. And therefore, we are looking at a bipartisan approach that will carry the interest of the nation above partisan interests.
On the other hand, President William Ruto has been amassing his support from the Nyanza region, which he got a handful votes in the last general election, with Cabinet Secretary for ICT Eliud Owalo gathering his troops to woo the Nyanza region to support President Ruto.
Ni vizuri tuweze kusema kwamba kuna tatizo kidogo. Wakati mnaenda mechi, hatufai kuwa na mmoja wa yale teams wakichagua referee.
However, all this is pegged on how Odinga and President Ruto plan to iron out their issues following the calling off of the mass action to forge a way forward between opposition and the ruling government. Flora Limuki, TV47.
Police have launched a probe into the attack of journalists by a rogue police officer who battered and repeatedly assaulted members of the Fourth Estate during Azimio protests last week, Thursday. Inspector General of Police Japhet Koome has confirmed that his office has received several complaints, noting that any officers who will be found culpable of any wrongdoing will carry their own cross. 6 journalists were attacked last Thursday, with the Media Council of Kenya documenting 25 cases of attacks on local and foreign journalists since the onset of the Azimio protest. Moige William with that.
Please, I'm rushing.
Tuesday, the Inspector General of Police Japhet Koome was put to task on the brutality meted on journalists covering the Azimio protest Thursday last week, where among them NTV and KTN News camera persons were injured after police unleashed terror on protesters who heeded on the call of Azimio leader Raila Odinga to join in the anti-Kenya Kwanza protest. Koome, in response, has assured journalists of protection during police operations, further stating investigation into the incident has already commenced after he received numerous complaints.
Therefore, I assure you of good working relationship, of your safety. Any time you feel you are in any way threatened, any issue causing you discomfort in terms of your security, IG is available. Welcome to Jogo House. Tell me, there's this police officer threatening me.
Also responding to a viral video that captured an officer firing tear gas canister inside a vehicle during the demo, Koome revealed the said officer was under probe as relevant investigating bodies have taken up the case.
Can you imagine one day waking up with the wish to harm a close friend? Can you imagine of that? So you are all, incidentally, a number of you are good friends. We keep talking. We are good friends.
Earlier, Media Council of Kenya MCK described March 2023 as the darkest month for Kenyan media since the clamor for multi-party democracy, noting since the onset of the demonstrations, 25 cases of attacks on local and foreign journalists by state and non-state actors had been documented.
Yes, I assure journalists you are safe and secure. I need to let you know I have relatives who are journalists. Yes. I have close friends who are journalists.
The police chief was speaking at the Kenya School of Government on the sidelines of interviews for the Deputy Inspector General of Police position, which fell vacant following the retirement of Edwin Mbugua. 12 senior police officers, including the new Director of Police Operations Munga Nyale, former police spokesperson Bruno Shioso, the Commander of General Service Unit Douglas Kanja, and the Director Chaplaincy and Counseling Dr. Vincent Makoha are among the candidates interviewed. Abdallah Komesho was appointed to the position in acting capacity. Moige William, TV 47.
And members of the county assemblies across the country under the County Assembly Forum camped at the Western Region Police Headquarters in Kakamega County to protest the killing of Kisii East Member of County Assembly Stephen Maloba. Maloba was stabbed to death in Manjit village, that is Waisero constituency, Kakamega County, that is during a political meeting on Saturday. Norbert Odur reports.
The County Assembly's Forum petitioned the government to assign armed security officers to all 4,200 members of county assemblies following the killing of Kisii East MCA Stephen Maloba. Today, the members of County Assembly from the Western Region visited the Western Region Police Headquarters to air their grievances and demand answers as to how MCA Stephen Maloba was attacked and murdered.
Washikwe. Mambo ya investigation hakuna hapa na watu wanajulikana kwa polisi. So what we want is justice. Wale wamedunga mheshimiwa Kisii wanajulikana. Wale walisaidia wale kwa commotion ya kudunga mheshimiwa Kisii wanajulikana.
Na tunaambia vijana wawachane na mambo ya violence. Wawache viongozi wafanye kazi. Na baada ya miaka 5 kama kiongozi atakuwa amefanya kazi sawa sawa, siasa itaanza.
Kisii constituency residents, led by former Kisii Member of Parliament Julius Aruga, who were also angered by Maloba's sudden death, held protest against the Kisii police station, asking the police to put the culprits behind bars.
Ningependa kushutumu hiyo kitendo ya kutoa maisha ya mwenzetu bila hatia yoyote, kwa sababu mheshimiwa alikuwa anaenda kuhudhuria mkutano ambao iko kwa area yako, na ako na haki ya kwenda kwa mkutano yoyote ambayo inafanyika kwa area yako.
Tunaomba justice must be seriously taken, na pia wale watu ambao walikuwa na hiyo kisanga washikwe, wawekwe ndani kufikia leo jioni.
Kisii OCPD Samuel Kogo confirmed that 3 suspects have already been arrested and are helping the police with the investigation.
As at now, investigations are underway. We have 3 people assisting us in investigations, and hopefully by the close of business tomorrow we may be having good leads.
However, Western Regional Commander Kiprono Lagat urged anyone who might have any information that will help in the investigation to come forward to help solve the murder case.
Na ningependa kuomba wananchi na mtu yeyote ambaye ako na information yoyote ambaye anaweza kutusaidia kukamilisha uchunguzi wetu aje mbele. Tuko na kikosi ambayo tumeweka kule Kisii, wametoka hapa Kakamega, na watakuwa natembelea ninyi, na pia kama uko na ujumbe anaweza kuwatembelea pale Kisii.
Reports indicate that the lawmaker was stabbed to death after chaos broke out at a political meeting in Kakamega County. Norbert Oduor, TV 47.
And another unfortunate story is that Butere Boys High School has been closed indefinitely following a suspected cholera outbreak after 90 students were hospitalized with cholera-like symptoms, including vomiting and diarrhea. And as Andrin Kilemi now reports, the incident comes barely a day after Mukumu Girls, a school within the same county of Kakamega, was closed following the death of 2 students. Kakamega County Governor Fernandez Baraza, however, has assured parents of the safety of their children, saying the situation is under control.
Teachers and students of Butere Boys High School are living in fear following a suspected cholera outbreak that saw over 90 students hospitalized after they exhibited cholera-like symptoms. Confirming the incident, Kakamega County Governor Fernandez Baraza said preliminary reports indicated that the students did not suffer from typhoid or cholera, but further assured parents that investigations would continue to establish the cause of stomach irritation.
I know quite a number of things, maybe around personal hygiene, and that is why, as a county, we are going to form an emergency team, which is going to, of course, work very closely with the school management and the national government to see how we can get the root cause.
The affected students were treated in various hospitals across the county, including Butere Level 4 Hospital. Barasa affirmed that out of those admitted, 5 were in stable condition and could be discharged from hospital tomorrow.
With regard to the samples which have been taken, we have now sent the food and water samples to Kemri for further tests, just to be sure on the root cause of the problem that has affected our school.
The incident comes barely 24 hours after Mukumu Girls, a school within the same county of Kakamega, was closed indefinitely following suspected food poisoning, with 2 students dead and over 100 others still receiving treatment. Andrin Kilemi, TV 47.
The case pitting former 13 Special Service Unit officers over the murder of 2 Indian nationals and a Kenyan taxi driver will take longer after the investigating officers through the prosecution asked the court to grant them another 60 days to allow them travel to India to conduct a DNA test of the 2 families. Micah Gungu with the details.
According to defense team, the investigating officers were delaying the process despite having enough time. The team maintained the officers were released in court on a free bond late last year and do not have any reasons to request for more days.
Application by the prosecution of the state to be allowed 2 months extension to carry out DNA analysis and the rival submissions by the defense. The last samples, I've been told, were collected on the 25th of March 2023.
2 months is too much time, and therefore, in the rare event that you may be persuaded to grant them an extension of time, on behalf of the respondents.
However, after their humble submissions, the Kahawa Court Senior Principal Magistrate Boaz Mpewa rallied on the prosecution application to grant the officers 2 months to have the investigation completed.
We are not asking the court to give us more time than necessary. We are also eager to have this matter investigations complete.
So by consent, further mention on 13th of June. The bond terms are extended.
The case shall be mentioned on the 13th June to know whether the respondent DNA will be negative or positive to have them charged or the miscellaneous application be dropped.
They indicated that there is need, after the collection of samples which has already been done, to have all these samples analyzed and then compared for any correlation. And therefore they were asking for 3 months. They later reconsidered the honor since the matter is being handled on priority basis.
Late last year, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations announced the disbursement of the Special Service Unit, recalling officers who were serving under the unit to the DCI headquarters on Kiambu Road for redeployment.
Esther Wanjiku and Esther Wangui.
Mike Kagwongo, TV 47, Nairobi.
You had enough time to save my daughter's life. These are the words of Sharon Jerry's father, wife to Michael Macharia, aka DJ Brownskin, whose video went viral over the weekend. The viral video that was recorded by DJ Brownskin himself shows his wife bidding goodbye to his children after allegedly consuming a poisonous substance. Sharon died in July last, and of course, father now says the video that is doing rounds on social media has opened deep wounds. This is July last year, so Zainab Mohammed has the details of that very story.
Days after a video showing what seems to be DJ Brownskin's wife Sharon Jerry's last moments, Jerry's father Albert Mwangi has broken his silence, blaming the DJ for failing to save his daughter's life. The grieving father said he is still in shock by the information about his daughter that is doing rounds on social media, saying he had no knowledge of any bad blood between the couple.
Ulipeleka maiti osi au kupeleka mgonjwa. You had that time kuchukua video baada ya save life. Ukipata mtu amegongwa na gari ikapotea, anatupatupa mguu, si utasimama you save life hata huo mjui.
He's now calling for justice as he tries to come to terms with the contents of the video, saying it has uncovered deep wounds.
Mambo ya social media, mara anasema ati amempata, sijui amefanya nini. Nimeona yeye anajua kupiga video sana. Mbona anasema hii mambo ya aliwapata? Si anajua kupiga video. Si angechukua hata hiyo video. Mimi nataka tu mtoto wangu niridhike.
Sharon Jerry allegedly died by suicide on the 22nd of July last year.
Now, in a bid to cushion the vulnerable population in the country, President William Ruto has reiterated the need for various partnerships in achieving universal health coverage and social protection, further boosting funding for the Social Protection Department, whilst reducing the amount paid to NHIF from the 500 shillings to 300 shillings. Elizabeth Atieno details.
There are 8.9 million people in Kenya currently living below the poverty line. 18.2% of Kenyan children under the age of 5 are suffering from stunted growth. And so as to cushion this group termed as vulnerable, the government has now allocated 28 billion Kenya shillings to support the Inua Jamii cash transfer program.
In 2014, the cost of hunger survey estimated that costs associated with underweight children were 13.1 billion. While those associated with acute respiratory infections, acute diarrhea syndrome, fever, and malaria was approximately 800 million.
To ensure seamless transfer, the program has since consolidated 3 categories of the vulnerable persons: older persons, orphans and vulnerable children, and persons with severe disability, to ensure they are cushioned during the tough economic times. The targeted groups are paid 2,000 per month by the government.
The social sector has a population of about 20 million, comprising of children, older persons, and persons with disabilities who require social protection services. Yet, the funding for this sector is currently at 0.7% of our GDP.
And I would urge them also, and I would urge planners and policy makers to come up with a policy that can condense all social security pension schemes into one large insurance scheme that can cover everybody.
The program's beneficiaries will from 1st June receive their stipends ahead of the public servants in a move aimed at cushioning and enhancing their sense of belonging in the society as per the bottom-up approach under the government's economic transformation agenda.
I know for a very long time we've had social protection cash transfer money disbursed 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe sometimes 7 months after they are due. Treasury have undertaken that from June 1, before salaries of public servants is paid, cash transfer for the vulnerable will be paid.
By the end of 2023, low-income learners in the country will only pay 300 Kenya shillings, down from 500 Kenya shillings charged on the National Health Insurance Fund. The insurance, which serves over 223,000 Kenyans from vulnerable households, will also cover cancer care so as to realize the universal health coverage agenda by reducing costs incurred on treatment.
It will be possible, beginning later this year, to pay 300 shillings and still keep the cover. Again, so that we can expand the number of people whom we can carry on board the National Health Insurance cover.
Council of Governors Chair Anne Waiguru has welcomed the national government's move, saying this will help expand social protection in Kenya, which is in line with the Sustainable Development Goals.
I wish to state that the welfare of 46% of Kenyans who are living below the poverty line, with 19% of them being in chronic poverty, can only be guaranteed if we put our heads together and make social protection policies, systems, and structures work.
The president was speaking during the Kenya Social Protection Conference of 2023 at the Kenya School of Government in Nairobi. The conference brought together different stakeholders from both locally and internationally. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Transport was paralyzed in Kajiado County following heavy rains that continue to pound the area, with the road endured impassable following floods that, of course, were in Basel Longoswa Road and has been cut off, with students and traders greatly affected, as Ronnie Regan details.
This was the situation on the Bisili-Lolonoso Road in Kajiado County. Transport activities were disrupted early Tuesday, making it impossible for the drivers to maneuver.
Leo tumevuna mvua mingi ambaye ilinyesha siku ya leo kama saa 7 ya usiku
Sasa tukaona tena hii barabara inakuanga ya national government, tumeona imekatika.
The school-going children had to walk for tens of kilometers to access their schools, while traders could not transport their goods to the market.
Kwa vera leo tuko na mchezo pale Lorongoswa, tumeona watoto waendi juu ya hiyo mchezo. Hiyo katika imekatika. Na hata nimeona walimu wengi wale wanalala busy, wamelala pale ile hajapata nafasi ya kwenda kuangalia watoto wao. Na hata na biashara mingi zimeharibika.
The residents and motorists have expressed fears that if the rains continue to pound, then their lives will be greatly affected, urging the government to intervene.
Hata kesho tutapeleka watoto wapi subzonal, hakuna barabara. Hivyo tunaomba leaders from MP, governor, MCS, any other person, watutengenezee hii river hii hapa inaitwa mashini. Hakuna kwenda tena. That is the end of the story. Na sio hii tu peke yake, iko mingi hapa kwa barabara.
Mvua iliweza kunyesha jana kwa mvua mzito kabisa hapa barabara hii ya kwenda Lorongoswa. Na kama iendapo itanyesha tena siku ya leo, najua hiyo barabara kufikia hata kesho kutwa haitapitika. Kwa hivyo serikali tunaomba kama inawezekana hiyo barabara Lorongoswa iweze kutengenezwa. Daraja liwekwe la maana. Kwa sababu mimi nikija kufunga shamba langu, hakuna atakayepita huko. Basi sijui usafiri itakuwa namna gani. Kwa sababu barabara hiyo imeharibika ya kutosha. Mimi mwenyewe ndio nimejitoa tu kuwapatia vijana waweze kupitia barabara kila wakati, kwa sababu ya hiyo barabara haitengenezeki, kwa sababu ni kwa muda mrefu sana barabara hiyo imeharibika.
Kile yetu tunasema kwamba kama ingewezekana serikali ya kutusaidie tutengenezee barabara. Sasa hii barabara imekatika, wananchi ndio walikuwa wanajitoa kujitengeneza. Kwa hivyo ni mzuri serikali ya kutusaidie.
This road is just one among many other roads in the country that have left many residents with a lot of questions as to where will they find comfort, especially during this rainy season. Ronnie Reagan, TV 47.
Wacha tuongee tu. Hii ni kazi ya serikali. Tuongea kabisa. Nani ataongea?
Yes, all right. We get to shift gears to the conversation, and the gentlemen are already here with us, noble beings, as well as those that have been here long enough to witness the political events of the country, and therefore we are delighted to have Professor who will be joining us to give us some more on the history of politics in the country, as well as we'll be having a member of parliament who joins us as well, and also Wakili, a constitutional lawyer, because what is playing out in the country is largely a constitutional process. Just how do we get it right and not going against what then the laws would detail or would expect for us? This is what we are getting into. Karibu sana once again. It's good to have you joining us. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KE. That is how you get to interact with us. We continue sampling your comments as we continue with the broadcast. And so next to me is Wakili Ndegwanjiru, who's a constitutional lawyer. Thank you so much, Wakili, for creating time. Interesting times in the country. I'd love to hear what you say.
These are very interesting times.
Yeah.
We also foresaw them coming.
Yeah.
So they never got us by surprise. We were very surprised by the statement that was made by Mr. William Ruto, and then the follow-up statement that was made by Ruto-Raila Odinga.
Yeah.
We all thought that the guns were to go silent, but as it is, and then we thought that the plane was taking off with the same speed. But unfortunately, we have seen there is no goodwill. There is no goodwill from the first person who made the first statement.
It will be interesting to hear
it
more.
It was just a commercial puff.
I do not know whether Honorable Nimrod Mbai would agree to that, a member of Parliament Kitui East and a member of the Kenya Kwanza government, town supporter of the government for that very matter. It looks like the statement comes from your end first. You think what Wakili says holds water? That maybe there's no essence of goodwill?
Basically, to come out first, that means goodwill. You know, we were in turmoil, we were, these issues, challenges, and there things were hotting up. And being the president, you can't just keep quiet and watch the country deteriorating in a certain direction. So coming out first was a sign of you care, as in the seat you occupy. It needs leadership. And as you know, the president has always said he believes in the constitution and structures. So it was in good faith to send the whole thing to the right institution, which is Parliament.
Well, and I mean, we have the political historian here, Professor Macharia Munene, that this did not get us by surprise because it's something that we have witnessed over time. But where we stand is then the question, is there some aspect of goodwill? Are we headed anywhere with this one? Or perhaps for the very first time, then we have something that is totally different and for the benefit of who?
I think we are headed in the right direction. The president was the one who was in a mess.
Okay.
Yeah. Raila was not in a mess. He was just enjoying it.
Right.
You know, and the president had to do something to be seen to be in charge and to be seen that he cares. Because being the president, everything is on his shoulders. Raila has no obligation of any kind, except he's doing what he does best. Make it difficult for the government to govern. And then they can cut a deal, whatever it is.
Right.
And apparently they were talking through proxies. They've not met officially.
Officially, yeah.
But they were talking through proxies. And so what the statements they made was it on Sunday?
Yes,
yeah,
Sunday evening.
Yeah, were actually the results of those proxy talks. And so for President Ruto, he really was in bad shape.
Yeah.
Because being the president and the country is going haywire, you cannot say, no, blame the other guy.
Yeah.
You're in charge. Okay? End of the story. You're in charge. I think he found a way of redeeming himself. And in a very clever way, whoever advised him should be given credit.
Yeah.
For say, agree to something.
But the developments, Professor, do not look beautiful at all.
That's why the move was good for him. Things were looking bad.
Yeah.
Huh? And that's why I'm saying he is the president.
Yes.
And things are going haywire.
Yeah.
And you are seen to be incapable of acting, which was wrong.
Yeah.
The end result would have been, if he totally failed to act, then there will be justifiable questions. What is he doing being president?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
If he cannot contain the situation. So the other side is, if he acts forcefully, then he'll be blamed for everything and anything, whether justified or not, he'll still be blamed. You know, those are the two. So he found a clever way of easing the tension for a while.
Okay.
As he regroups and his people go back to the drawing board. Maybe Mweshmiya will be one of them.
Yeah.
Say, please do this, do that. As then the critics are also re-strategizing. What do we do now that... because as I was coming, I heard some people complaining, ati tumechezewa.
Yeah.
I say, what? Yeah. So you have these tough guys or rough people who just must get everything they want now in order to look as if they are doing well. So both sides, I think it was the right step in the right direction.
Yeah.
It will not resolve, but it has tried to settle a few things.
And it's not even a day or two, and maybe that's why Wakili says that while this really played out, we do not seem to have some essence of goodwill. And as early as yesterday morning, I had, individuals that are strong supporters and sit, in the inner sanctums of the Kenya Kwanza government, appearing to say, really, we were just trying to find a way of relaxing Mzee, as they would rightfully say, because then evidently we know we all needed that. But then again, that's perhaps to show that there was no point of goodwill. And this coming from the statement of the president yesterday, that is in Rwanda, who says that, well, we are not in the business of a handshake, and this has to be resolved at the level of parliament. On the other side, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga maintains that maybe the parliament should not be the ultimate space for this to be addressed, because he perhaps feel like, this really would not bring to the fore so much. And I would want to maybe agree to the fact that it could be absurd for us to imagine that this would be solved at the level of Parliament, yet they overlooked the Parliament and proceeded to the streets. And they knew very well that there was that option of addressing some of these matters at the level of Parliament. Could it be what informs this hard stance by the Right Honourable Raila Odinga and the Azimio team to say that, you know, if we are not going to get extra parties to be incorporated in this conversation, then I'm afraid we are going back to the trenches, or we're going back to the people, we're going back to the streets?
Linda, it's first of all, it's very interesting to find that yesterday, Right Honourable Raila Odinga made a statement that whatever Mr. William Ruto read out on that particular evening is not what has, or not form part of what had been agreed. And then you can see they are all speaking from different positions. One in Rwanda, the other one one in Kigali, the other one in Nairobi.
Yeah.
It tells you that we are not out of the woods yet. And it tells you that there's somebody who was attempting to take advantage of the other. It's very unfortunate for somebody to think that you can slow down Raila Odinga just by mere intimation of intentions. And you can see they have come out very clearly saying that the issues that are being raised are not exclusively for Parliament. Yeah. Because we are raising very serious constitutional issues. When I was here the last time, we raised the question of constitutional exclusion. And we also raised the issue of the electoral injustice. You know, when we speak about electoral injustice, Linda, we're not just addressing the issues of opening the servers. We're also looking at, does the current IBC, as contemplated by the Constitution and the IBC Act, serve the purpose? When you look at that, you need to look at the way the history of our elections has evolved. Yeah. And how the judiciary has been able to inform how to go or to walk towards free and fair elections. For example, there is this case of the minor Kisii case. The minor Kisii case was a very well thought out case by the Court of Appeal. When they said that the results, the finality of the elections results is at the polling center, polling station. So any other thing in between is an intermediary to facilitate the pronouncements or the announcements of the results. For example, when the presiding officer transmits his results, the returning officer at the county, the constituency, the returning officer at the constituency is just a conveyor belt. When it goes to the county returning officer, is again a conveyor belt to get to Nairobi to fight Chebukati or any other person who may become the chairperson. So even Chebukati, assuming, is just a conveyor belt. So our argument is one. If the minor Kisii case indicated that the polling station is final, why can't we have each county declaring its presidential elections at the county level? Okay. What is the purpose of transmitting election results to Nairobi just for purposes of announcements? So that then, even at the county level, we are able to know how did so-and-so perform. So by the time we're getting this at the... For transparency purposes. Okay. And there should be nobody who should be opposed to an attempt to enhance accountability. Just before I pass over to Professor or Mheshimiwa, this is the other issue that was raised. That Parliament as currently constituted is not a house that can be trusted to handle any constitutional matter in this country. Is it? One, and I beg to use this very loosely, you can see the caliber of the individuals we have. I don't want to mention names. In my view, they are not concrete enough to handle the issues that we are raising. This is the voice of the common mwananchi. This is Wanjiku that but look at how it is constituted. It's unfortunately that the democracy was able to yield such kind of a house. It's a house that has sat and said that we want to negate, we want to deny ourselves, we want to limit ourselves of the powers granted to us to oversight government. Why do you argue so? And perhaps Mheshimiwa is here, seated. Simply because? This parliament that we have, is an extension of the executive.
Do you suppose that is the case? And I mean, could that have informed the fact that the Azimio team opted for the streets as opposed to, raising some of these concerns at the level of Parliament?
Linda, I think I'll attribute some of these things, basically thoughts, to, and Professor, I know having the history of our politics, may agree with me or not, there's been a process of socialization towards a certain direction, radicalization towards a certain direction, where we are not used to respecting institutions. When I say that, is the IEBC as an institution was formed by this constitution. It's an independent constitutional body, and it has its mandate at different levels. We have mandates at the polling station, where we have the presiding officer who announces the results at that point. Then we have the constituency tallying center, where members of parliament, MCAs, are declared. Then we have the county tallying center, where we have the senators and governors declared and women reps. Then now we move to the national tallying center, where we have the national returning officer, who is the chairman of the IEBC. Not just by the name Chebukati, but the chairman, stipulated by the constitution, is the one to declare the national results, the presidential results. Well, the question we need to ask is, did that happen? Was that followed? And the answer is yes. Then the second institution...
Wakili here is a constitutional lawyer, so understands how important it would be to go by what the constitution stipulates.
Yes. The second question is, brings in the next independent institution, which is the judiciary. The recourse, if you are not satisfied with what happened here, where do I run to? I run to the Supreme Court. And as per law, the Supreme Court is there to listen and hear and basically give results or an alternative or an answer to petitions on presidential elections. Did that happen? And yes, it went the full course. Evidence was carried before court. Lawyers were there providing evidence in the best way they know it. We had lawyers from the other side, and they also countered the evidence. We had technical people within the High Court, within the Supreme Court, and at some point it was said, let's go to the servers to look at some of the disputed polling stations we are talking of, to see if what IBC has is what you agents have. And when they went to check on this, the results which came back to the chamber, to the Supreme Court chamber, to the justices is yes, all these polling sessions, the way IBC has is what is the server, and the Supreme Court went ahead to pronounce itself. That's a second institution of the Constitution. Then now the presidency was declared valid. Chebukati announced as its mandate within the law to announce. Then if Chebukati announces and disputed, and then someone goes ahead and dispute, you can only dispute through the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, this Wednesday to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court announced itself, pronounced itself, as lawyers would put it. Then now the president went ahead, was sworn in the timings, in the timings the Constitution has given, before 2 p.m. in a public place, not the way Kivuitu did it at night, or the way our brother did it at Uhuru Park the other time, the people's president. Then now we have come to a point where we have this push and pull, and something needs to be done. And the president says, yes, from where I sit, I have no mandate to look into some of these things. The only institution authorized by the Constitution to look into these things is Parliament. And if you can recall, the president had done a memo earlier this year to actually, before we went on recess, to the Speaker, to the House, stipulating some of the issues he would want checked and worked on by Parliament. And majority of the issues being raised by Azimio were in the President's memo, including the constitution of the IBC. And let's go back to Bomas. The day, I think it was the second Bomas, the day the deputy president by then spoke in length, pronouncing issues he was not okay with. And one of the things he was not okay with by that time is the constitution of the IEBC. He said, and he quoted Mr. Raila Odinga, that he is good in football. And will it be fair for teams, and not all the teams, some of the teams, to choose the referee for a certain tournament? And it was ignored. BBI was said to go ahead despite the deputy president and his party by that time bringing it out. Now we are the only body that as per the constitution can work on that.
Is the Parliament.
It's Parliament.
The only problem that the Wakili here has is that there's a general feel, or maybe he feels that the bicameral house is not well positioned, and that is based on the characters that we have therein, the question of integrity, the fact that there seems to be some sense of capture by the executive, and therefore how do we have the confidence that the Parliament or the National Assembly is capable of addressing some of these matters that are being brought to the fore?
You know, Wakili, being the patriotic Kenyan he is,
and as we cut to
I know he voted. I know he voted, and we have 6 ballots. And I know he voted for all of them. A
member of Parliament.
He voted for the MCA.
Yes.
He voted for the member of Parliament, for the women rep, for the senator, for the governor, and the president. And now he goes ahead and says they don't trust Parliament. What is the origin of our Parliament?
What perhaps do you suppose, Professor?
And the origin of Parliament is Kenyans.
The people.
The people. If we can talk of people-driven agenda, basically the best example of this in all the arms of the government is Parliament. Because the executive, these are people employed by the Public Service Commission. The judiciary, these are people employed by the Judicial Service Commission. It's only Parliament where we have players, or let's call them workers, employed directly by the people through the vote.
And these are representatives. Let's allow Professor come in on this very matter. Prof, an insult to the voter when there's that feel that the members that they elected to represent them, to speak on their behalf, are not well up to task, and perhaps that is the fear that maybe the Azimio side would have, going ahead to say it's fine, we could incorporate the voices of the parliamentarians as to this process, but then again let's have others as well that come in, because we cannot trust the bicameral house, we cannot trust the National Assembly in particular to speak to these matters that they would love to be spoken about, and especially the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission formation.
You see, everything is politics. And as politics is trying to outsmart, outdo the others, whether in a petty way or in a grand way, still politics. Yes, the members of Parliament have not all been exemplary. And some of them are dubious. The fact that we are told, I don't know, I've never seen it, but sometimes they go to the toilet and they come out richer than they were, before they got in there, and therefore voted that way. It is itself an insult to the member of Parliament and to the Parliament itself, and then to the people who voted for those people. The incompetence of some people in Parliament, and the term incompetence also accommodates corruption. Because if you are competent, you cannot do, there are some things you cannot do. Then these people display lack of independence of mind, because we send them there to represent us, to do what is right, and not to be receiving instructions from any quarter. Of course, there are those parties, small things here and there. But when it comes to matters of conscience, each MP is supposed to look after the interests of his people, of the country, irrespective of what the party leader says, what the government says. It is him or her. And they have shown incapacity to do that. And that's why the problem is, one of the problems is. Now, the claim that you should not go through the parliament because these people are incompetent also raises the question, and who gave you the competence or the power to say they are incompetent?
Okay.
You know, at least they were elected. You are not. You know, so you have no business saying that they are not qualified to do that. So they maybe, as they say, we rethink the whole structure. But it will take time. It brings me now to the other part. The issue is not the institutions we have. It is not the laws we have. We have more than enough laws. And we have more than enough institutions. An institution on top of another institution to do the same thing. We have those things. So that is not the problem. The problem is the attitude of our leaders. They do not believe in the institutions they create. They do not believe in the structures. And if they don't, some of them are so influential and that they are power basis on themselves. Although they have no statutory powers, but they are powers unto themselves. And if those leaders do not believe in the institutions, we can talk all we want, because they will use their influence to get things done in particular ways, especially when advancing political interests. This is all what we are talking about. This is political game. It's got nothing to do with the country. It's political power play. And what happens at the end is a question of wit. So what we have right now is Raila Odinga and Ruto trying to match wit to see who is smarter than the other and who can come out better.
But Professor, therein are also noble leaders that we cannot overlook, and maybe the likes of Martha Karua. You do not want to imagine that Kalonzo Musyoka is okay being taken through a ride where two masters are trying to gauge their political muscle, and they're just watching. I mean... No,
Linda. Let's be realistic. You know, politicians are politicians. And they'll go along the way they think it will benefit them for that particular moment. Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, former vice president, senior counsel, and all that. He's also on record of saying he would be the most stupid person
to support,
to do some things.
Which he did.
He still does them. And so you cannot. If we forget the political game here, we shall be losing it. Yes, the economy is not doing well. That's true. And it's not getting better at present. That's true. But the end game is power play.
The end game?
Who is in the State House? That's the issue.
So we all know who is in the State House.
Maybe Linda, before you go to Wakili,
brief.
Because it's not my interview, but there is something I would want to borrow the mind of the legal mind from our constitutional lawyer. Are we talking of individuals or are we talking of institutions? Because when we talk of the president, it's a constitutional institution. The president. It could be any individual. It can be Ruto, it has been Moi, it has been Kibaki. It doesn't matter. When we talk of parliament, we are talking of 290 women and men elected from duly gazetted constituencies. When we are talking of the judiciary, we are talking of people who have been taken through a certain process and sworn in to become justices. When we talk of Martha Karua, what institution is Martha Karua? When we talk of Raila Odinga, what institution is Raila Odinga, and how has Raila Odinga been defined in our constitution, so that we can give him such a weight as the Supreme Court, as Parliament, as the presidency. I would want to hear what Wakili has to say, although it is not my interview.
I agree. All what we must appreciate is that the 2010 Constitution intended to clean up and to give some bit of hygiene in the manner in which we do our things in this country. And therefore, it created those institutions that we are now mentioning here. But the question is, are these institutions functioning? If you just look at all the Chapter 15 constitutional commissions, you might want to begin with the EACC. You might want to begin with the Judicial Service Commission. If you go to the Judicial Service Commission, do we have rogue judges and rogue judicial officers who are still executing the functions of judges and magistrates?
Wakili,
the answer is yes.
They're constant. I mean, there are very many times. Let's say I have made phone calls to Wakili, to find out whether he would join us on set, and he tells me that I'll be having a court session tomorrow morning, and so I won't manage. Why would you proceed to represent someone at the level of court if you do not have?
I do not have any other place to go. I'll still go to that particular court and see whether I can get justice. But the fact of the matter is, we lost the transformation agenda, the one that Chief Justice Mutunga initiated in the judiciary, to the extent that today, most of the judicial officers that we have, you will not trust them that they are going to dispense with the substantive justice, the one that Kenyans contemplated. I am talking about the institution of the judiciary because that is where I belong and that's where I work every day. That's just one institution. Look at all other institutions. Are they responding to the plights as they arise? Now, let's go to the institution of Parliament. Recently, Parliament amended their standing orders, and most importantly, standing order number 25, which says that now a member of the Cabinet Secretary can appear in Parliament and answer questions. Where is this person appearing? He's appearing in the Parliament to answer questions, either on policy or whatever that question may be, to inform legislation. What does our Constitution contemplate? Our Constitution contemplates a pure presidential system. Has Parliament amended the Constitution indirectly by amending the standing orders to bring the Cabinet to Parliament? Yes, because they have now done what is called the fusion. They have fused Parliament and the executive. Is that constitutional? It's not constitutional. So if Parliament can move towards doing something unconstitutional just because somebody issued a memorandum in Parliament, they do not think the implication and how it is going to square out with the Constitution just because they are looking at the origin of that memorandum. Let me go to the other issue about the memorandum that Mwashimo has raised. The memorandum also advised Parliament to look onto how they can initiate the post of opposition leader in Parliament. Again, as we speak, Parliament is looking on how that can be incorporated. Remember, when you bring members of the Cabinet into Parliament, you have first of all amended the functions of Parliament. Because you have fused executive with Parliament without going to the people. Yet Article 255 says that if you want to amend or alter the functions of Parliament and the composition of Parliament,
you need to go back
for a referendum. If you want to go and introduce the post of an opposition leader in Parliament, one, you alter the composition of Parliament, you alter how it is constituted, and you alter its function.
And you have seen the proposals that Mheshimiwa speaks of that had been presented by the President, including this of creation of the office of the
opposition leader,
sitting under the article that speaks of the executive as well.
And you see, in fact, where the most ridiculous thing, and I don't know where this William Ruto got this from, is that he's now proposing that the post of the member of the opposition leader, be under the chapter that has created the executive. So it becomes an extension of the executive. Then you're telling me that we can trust, if the parliament cannot just think about those small issues, how then can we trust them to think of how to include, to bring about the idea of inclusivity, the reforms that we need to enhance electoral injustice in this country. And you remember I mentioned that the electoral justice or injustice in this country is not about opening the servers. It's also looking at whether the current setup of parliament appreciates the constitutional dictates. Just one example before I pass off to this, to my colleagues. We are saying, and I am saying, that electoral injustice also involves a situation whereby somebody casts his vote and the vote fails to yield the intended results. For example, a voter in Ruiru constituency cast his vote. On the same day, a voter in Lamu West cast his vote. Remember, there's a constitutional dictate on how constituencies should be constituted. And this dictate is about the question of achieving the population quota. So if you find that you're going to an election, Ruiru has over 600,000 people. And then a constituency in Lamu has about 20,000
say.
When these two constituencies go and cast their votes does not meet the threshold of the population quota contemplated. And that results into an electoral injustice because that constituency with less population quota has denied another constituency representation.
Can we hold it at that, Wakili, and perhaps come and unpack this further, because these are some of the problems that, or the lacuna we would argue, then the Constitution would have. But as Wakili would ask, of importance is to understand whether we have, members of Parliament that have as well read the Constitution proper, and would be able to speak to what is expected of it, push the country to a point where they are going to uphold the rule of law. But is that what is playing out? After this short break.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Wakati mwingine kama weekend, mimi najiachilia.
Hata ukumbuki history.
Nikifika watu wangu watu wakinipokea na kupokeleka.
Umeset the mood.
Nimeset the mood. Naweza kupokeleka. Nikitumai kwamba mzima popote pale ulipo, nikikukaribisha katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi. Jina langu Elizabeth Mutuku, na katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kutangamana nao kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea siku nyingine. Tutapatana papa hapa umjue kiongozi mwingine.
Jiunge nasi toka hapa hadi ufuoni mwa bahari. Meli yetu itakapotua nanga kwa uhondo ribo ya riwaya hii mwisho wa kosa. Monica.
It's early morning in Maralal. Start your morning informed, educated, entertained, and above all, know your country. From the beautiful plains of Samburu County to the skyscrapers of Nairobi, Morning Cafe certainly got you covered. Indeed, a beautiful place to watch and certainly a moment of understanding and knowing your country. Indeed, to the remotest parts of every county. Join me, Linda Alela, every weekday from 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
The diversity of Kenya's wildlife has garnered international fame.
This is pellets that we give to the tourists, the giraffes. We ration because we don't want the giraffes to eat too much of this. We want them to have more of the natural browse.
We may not always get the opportunity to go out to see the wildlife, but you'll never miss the opportunity to see it from the comfort of your couch.
This is home to animals that have been found out there either injured, abandoned,
or confiscated from people who are holding them illegally.
Only on TV47 Wildlife, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m.
Disability is a club that anyone can join.
I live with special needs. It means I have a limitation. There are things I can't be able to do personally myself.
And in our journey to talk about disability, we tell the stories of those with disabilities and even sit with specialists to understand what it means for those affected directly and indirectly.
Everybody's life, mine has also
instrumental as to the growth of democracy, and as well, acknowledging the importance of the Constitution, the fact that it is dynamic in nature and can be adjusted if not amended. So amended is actually the word. But then again, for the good of the common mwananchi, it would be pointless for us to argue that we have loopholes in the Constitution, we need amendment, and then amend them, and again, do not uphold or get to levels where we do not implement what is enshrined in this very Constitution. And so coming to you, Mheshimiwa, and listening to what Wakili Ndegwa Njiru speaks to, there is quite a big problem with us as a people when it comes to, first of all, looking at the rule of law, following them. I mean, we have numerous cases of contempt of court. That is one thing that is evident. And we ask ourselves then, what is the need of crafting all these beautiful laws that we do not fall short of, then go against them?
Allow me to speak for the Kenya Kwanza government, because the president came on board with serious pledge that he will be a president who will follow the law, no matter the law is against his government or pro his government. And as we speak, we can't pinpoint any one or two issues where the president has had an issue of contempt of law as compared to the last regime. The last regime can be accused of contempt of law.
We have evident, cases as to what would be declared as contempt of court, and perhaps, a scenario where maybe the government has gone against what it is that is the rule of law, and perhaps what it is that Wakili speaks to, that we now speak of a scenario where we'll be having, the cabinet secretaries appearing before the House to speak to these matters, which could be a good thing. But then again, what procedure have we taken to arrive to this conclusion, in as much as it would be a helpful matter? Isn't that as good as, contempt of court, in as much as it's just going against what the rule of law declares?
I think we are not yet there. We have not reached to a point where we can now declare there is some contempt of law. Because the cabinet secretaries have not yet been declared to appear in Parliament.
But from what you heard the president say over the weekend, it's as good as...
No. These are some of the things which are being looked at, and that's where the delay to have the cabinet secretaries coming before Parliament.
Can we trust the parliamentarians to, push us to a point where we use the right route to incorporate this in law?
Kindly trust Parliament for that.
Okay.
Unless we wait until that point where we now say, yes, so and so the cabinet secretary so and so was in Parliament today answering questions, and the route to take him to Parliament had not been cleared constitutionally to satisfaction. So up to now, let's hold our horses, wait until it is done. Then now we can correct or say it was done illegally, but it's yet there. You can't accuse someone of murder. Wait until somebody murders and say so and so committed a felony.
I want to believe that the reason why we speak to these matters is because ours is to look beyond what is placed on the table and say, in the event that it takes this direction, what happens in the event that it takes this direction. So we're just trying to, get ourselves into a scenario where if this were to happen, and perhaps also just to remind members of Parliament that there are Kenyans out here who understand the Constitution, who are alive to the fact that some of these laws are supposed to be followed and in which way, and therefore let them not try to play crafty. And I am not saying that would be the case, but we have witnessed a scenario where, well, at the level of Parliament, things are passed even when they really are not pro-mwananchi.
How do we measure pro-mwananchis? because I'm elected by the people of Kitui East in Parliament, and one of my mandates is to make law together with the rest of the 290 plus members of Parliament, including the nominees. So when we say this is not syncing well with Mwananchi, what instrument do you measure syncing well or not syncing well with Mwananchi? You know, we have a lot of guys who know a lot out here and purport to know what Mwananchi thinks, or purport to know what is good for Mwananchi.
Okay.
Take it from me, whatever I pass in Parliament, come to Kitui East and try to challenge me before the people who elected me, whether that Nimrod did right or wrong. I will win, because my people trust what I'm doing is right. Or tell them Nimrod walked to the toilet and came out with
10,000 shillings.
Having changed his mind. My people can't believe I've done that. But we have a few guys who have access to the media, and when they say that, you know, and there's something that we need to understand. There is a collective, national collective way of, let me call it, beating the Parliament, or accusing the Parliament of wrongdoings. But when we segment it, when we take the single units, you find guys are safe. Somebody can say MPs are giving themselves FT allowances, which they don't qualify. But when you go to Kitui East, everybody will tell you Nimrod never spent his salary. He spends it on us. So I would rather Nimrod get his salary doubled.
But don't you think that's a problem? That is then a problem.
When you ask someone in Nairobi, they will tell you these MPs have doubled their salaries, and that is wrong for the country. But the people who elected us, when you go down to where they are, they will tell you, for heaven's sake, our MP will always contribute to when we have some matanga. Our MPs built that church. Our MP took that orphan to school.
Mheshimiwa, that in itself, my thinking is that it's a problem. And perhaps throw it to Professor here, and we have witnessed even, you know, with the bigger democracies, that really it doesn't have to be about the Member of Parliament even spending their very own, so that the people can, you know, get benefits, can get development, can enjoy the best of government. I mean, then it clearly means that there's something that we're not doing right.
What I was trying to say before Prof comes in, and I'll be very brief, is some of the national perceptions, let me call them national perceptions, if they were subjected to a referendum, they will fail by 10 a.m. If the package is given to MPs, if the conduct of MPs was subjected to a referendum, take it from me, MPs will win the referendum by 80%. Because people are in support of the MPs. But there is that national perspective by a few people who try to shape the national opinion. And they have access to the national media. So thousands and thousands of mothers who don't have access to this national media, they are the silent majority, and they have their voice through the vote, through the ballot.
And we're talking about the essence of civic education. That today you want to look at your Member of Parliament as a person who's supposed to give you change, as opposed to a person who's supposed to go in Parliament, oversight, legislate, and, you know, represent you at that very space. If at all they have to meet with you on the ground, it should be on this election hearing period, or the moments where we are talking NGCDF. That in itself, don't you think, speaks so much so to the problems that continue to embed in us, deep-rooted? And maybe we should have a different conversation as to how we adjust this, Professor.
Yeah, it's true. It's a question of civic education and expectations. And yes, the MPs and the MCAs spend a little money to get popular. And if it was that cumbersome in terms of expenses, why do they spend millions on millions of shillings to get elected to a place where they are going to be broke.
Yeah.
You know, it does not compute.
It does not add up. It doesn't.
It does not
add
up.
Yeah.
Because some people spend even 100 million to become MP. And so there is something more than saying that they are spending, therefore should be compensated back. The reason, one of the reasons the Parliament, not this particular but previous ones, created the CDF is to caution MPs from this very thing that, because I remember Olo Aringo, and he used to be one of those.
Back then.
He was joking, telling us the reason they passed that thing is so that he can go to Kisumu, sit somewhere in Kisumu and eat his fish without being harassed by people looking for and CDF was supposed to do that. And actually did. Some MPs become very popular because of the way they use the CDF. Although I think there was an adjustment, don't make it as if it's yours, personal. But they use it as personal property to advance their causes, which is nothing wrong with that. It's very good. In fact, when devolution was coming, some people were thinking that devolution was a bigger CDF. Because CDF has done good work. There's no question. Now, the counties have not done what people expected in terms of devolution. When they compare with the CDF, the counties have failed in that respect. Now, let me come to expectations. This constitution, the 2010 constitution, was not done in good faith. There was a lot of vendetta in it. There was a lot of personalization. Some people thought they were fixing others through the constitution. Previously, when the people who shepherded the country into independence, and they're the ones who came up with this thing that a minister and even a president should be an elected member of parliament. And they had good reason for that. Some of the things we are now talking about will not be an issue because you stand for president. In fact, it was if you want to be president, you should also be standing for an MP. If you lose the presidency and you win the member of parliament, you are still in parliament. You still have some place. But it was removed, I think, as a matter of vendetta, because some people thought that we are going to fix those guys there now. If you lose, I mean, if you go, I win, it's up to you. That's your problem. Now we are going back and saying, now I think we should think again. We made a mistake. So I have no problem with you saying, let's amend, or whether we go through the referendum or whatever, it's not the issue. That presidential candidates should go back the way it used to be. You are also
going back to your people for
yes, you are also elected at some place, so you still continue being.
Professor, what if your people reject you and then you enjoy lots of numbers across the country?
No, if your people reject you, then you are rejected. Stop wasting.
There's no way you're getting.
You stop wasting our time. So it needs to be rethought properly, and this habit of making laws and constitutional amendments to benefit or to fix some individual.
And that's very common,
It's terrible. And we have this constitution is full of that.
It's terrible.
Because you check something, why is this? Oh yeah, it was stop Moi. Whatever Moi used to do, stop it. Now, the vice president, our new constitution says the president cannot fire the guy.
Yes.
Because they are elected together.
Yes.
One of the innovations in BBI, if I read it right, is to empower the president to do something about that. To streamline many things. So there is need for streamlining. There is need for consensus all over. And it is not necessarily a monopoly of anyone. I believe Parliament has a role to play, but it is not the only one.
And as you respond as well, Wakili, in your hearts of hearts, why do you suppose that the president isn't genuine or was not genuine in his address Sunday?
I believe he was not genuine, but please allow me not to lose the thought that Professor...
Yes, that's why I said, as you also, speak to that.
Because Professor is introducing very fundamental issues. That in 2010, when we were enacting this constitution, we did not have the idea of posterity in it. That although the preamble says that we are adopting this constitution for ourselves and for our future generation, we were not able to go past Moi. So the constitution, as it correctly puts it, was meant to fix some certain bullies.
Yeah.
Now the reality has dawned on us that those bullies are no longer there in the play. So when the curtains are drawn and the bullies are not there, and here we have a constitution that is not responding to the plight and to the needs of a growing democracy, then what do we do? And that is why we are saying the biggest mistake we did when we were promulgating this constitution was to have the CIC, the Constitutional Commission. Remember the one that was there?
Yeah.
That only lasted for 5 years. This Constitutional Commission was a midwife. It was supposed to be the one that was collecting and doing the audit of the Constitution to a certain level where we are saying, okay, the Constitution has, the wine has matured, we can now partake of it. But we never got to that level because that commission was short-lived. Now, the challenge here is, who is there to do the audit for us to see what is working for the Constitution and what is not working for the Constitution independently? Because now, the only players that are left is the political players. Azimio on this side, KK on this side. Nobody trusts the other. But if we had that commission that was midwifing this Constitution and saying, okay, we have done our independent works, we have audited, this thing is not working, let's Kenyans think about it. So nobody is collecting those views. Even the pronouncements that are done by court that may inform legislations and may inform the restructuring of our democracy, nobody takes note of it. Even the Law Reform Commission itself is a moribund. It does not inform how this democracy is going to grow. So that is why we have a problem with the manner in which in the manner of choosing what do we take, what do we leave, what do we drop. The president was not, or rather Mr. William Ruto was not genuine in his address. Because he's addressing this thing as if he's addressing Raila Odinga. This thing is not about Raila Odinga. This thing is about the millions and millions of Kenyans who feel disfranchised by the system that we currently have. Like it has been correctly put by Professor. And Parliament was right, just to show that there are so many of us who believe that things should have been done differently. When Parliament goes and says we want to amend the standing orders to bring the cabinet into Parliament, it's the same thing that BBI had contemplated. And now BBI was using the right procedure for amendment of the Constitution other than short-circuiting the Constitution through the standing orders.
Well, one of the reasons why the BBI was, bashed or, was and before it got to the level or where it is, that it's simply because the courts declared that really the procedure that was followed wasn't constitutional.
Now, what we can say, Linda, that was a pronouncement by the court, but the thinking is still there. And the court faulted the procedure. Can we rectify the procedure?
Isn't that what the president is trying to do?
No, he's short-circuiting it. When he says that Parliament should, and if you remember his address on the 26th of September, 26th of October, when he was in Parliament, when he gave his first address, he said that Parliament should become a genius and fix and amend the standing orders. It tells you this person does not appreciate how our laws are made. If today everybody says that we can amend the standing orders, and the standing orders are amended at the behest of Parliament. Nobody questions them. So tomorrow they can say they will amend the standing orders for it to appreciate what Professor was saying. That is why we said, when you want to amend certain things in the Constitution, come back to us. We wanted to protect that, again, because we had the idea of the arbitrariness that Moi had, and the idea of the dictatorship and the tyranny that Moi had. So we said there are some certain things that are sacrosanct and sacred in the Constitution to be left to the hands of parliamentarians. And for example, is it true that we have electoral injustice in this country? Yes, we have.
It is evident.
But how are the two sides looking at it, both Azimio and KK? Are they looking at it in a manner that can address that plight and that challenge? I just posed an issue of representation as forming part and parcel the electoral injustice.
Yeah.
When in the and you remember in the BBI we had proposed, instead of denying those guys the gains that they already have, those people with constituencies, but it has not met the population quota, instead of denying them that constituency, let us increase the number of the constituencies so that those guys who need it and they have no place where to get it, they can now get it. Because we never wanted to mutilate the gains of the 2010 constitution. What happened? People bastardized it. People demonized it. Where do we go to? We go to a situation whereby population quota must be met by the IBC and must be met within the 290 constituencies. That means there's a certain constituency in Northeastern or where somewhere in Kenya that is going to lose its constituency.
Wow.
When that constituency loses its constituency, remember those people are used.
Yes.
They are used to representation. They are used to having their member of parliament. They are used even to this unconstitutional CDF that was being given. So what will happen? They will be losing the gains. But remember, the 210 constituencies were not created through a dictated formula. They were politically created by Moi.
290?
210.
And 10, yes.
The 210.
Yes.
But when Ligare came to create the extra 90, he also followed the same philosophy. He never followed the dictated constitutional philosophy of the population quota. So we ended up having 290 constituencies created through the Moi philosophy. Now we are saying that we need to move from that Moi philosophy of political influence and go to the population quota dictates. Who is ready? Tell me which MP in this country is ready to lose his constituency so that Ruiro, which is overrepresented, can
be split to
where?
Yeah. All right. So here we are, Mheshimiwa, and
I think there are some things we need to appreciate, and we can't appreciate some of the things when we are talking from Nairobi. We need to go to the ground. I always call it the Magoha syndrome, and rest in peace, Waziri Magoha. You know, Magoha said, in a classroom which is not permanent should be abolished, and if the school should be closed somehow. And I was like, hi, what do you mean, Waziri? I'm here, I'm a member of parliament, and I've never, in the 8 years I went to primary school, I never sat in a permanent class. Actually, from class 1 to class 6, I schooled under a tree. And I managed to go to the university, and I'm a member of parliament representing those people.
But the reasons why we have members of parliament is because, and I mean devolution for that matter, is because we really want to have our students schooling in classes.
So the thing, what I'm trying to say is, Waziri was born here in Makongeni, schooled in a concrete classroom, went to Starehe Boys, went to the University of Nairobi. He has never left Nairobi. Then he has a surgeon clinic in Nairobi. He has never left Nairobi to go to Kakuma, a whole primary school, where even the head teacher sits on a tree. And that's a primary school in our country. You know, he is not aware of mobile schools, where schools are migrating following cattle hunters, or that's where the kids are going. That brings me to what Wakili is saying. I was talking to my friend Didimas Baraza the other day, the MP for Kiminini. He has, his constituency has 8 primary schools. 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My constituency has 290 primary schools. And we allocated the same amount of CDF development fund. So when Honorable Baraza is doing story buildings for classrooms, I'm fighting to see even the amount cannot reach to every school. Honorable Baraza allocates each school over 5 million every financial year. I can't manage to allocate each school even have $1 million every financial year, because the schools are so many. And the schools are not that many because I would love them to be many. It's because of the distances. Because to move from a village, to walk from one school to the other school, you are talking of 30 kilometers. So the students, the pupils, midstream, will have to walk 15 kilometers to go to school. Tell me when a kid will grow enough to be in a position to walk for 15 kilometers back and fro. That means the child has to grow up to the age of 12, 13, so that they can go to standard 1 or nursery school. So as we talk of the quota, as we talk of population in some areas under representation, we also need to look at the distances in the other constituencies. So there are so many things to look into as you create these constituencies. I worked for I was in last parliament, and I did not manage to allocate money to all the primary schools in my constituency because practically it could not work. But I'm telling you, I have a colleague who allocated money to each and every primary school every financial year. So those are things Waziri Wakili needs to be aware about. We have this other side of the coin in the rural areas. Compared to Ruiru, which is an urban area.
I think he's just,
that's where
more or less like alluding to the same thing.
That's where we talk
justice.
This is where we talk of 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. And 1 man, 1 kilometer, 1 vote. You see? And these are genuine concerns. These are genuine concerns.
That is not what the Constitution has decreed. You see what Mheshimiwa is telling you and is not appreciating? That he also has a problem with representation. That this Didymus Baraza's constituency perhaps should not be there.
It should be there. Actually, he has 110,000 registered voters. I have 56,000 registered voters.
You're not looking at the registered
voters.
He's double his number.
Registered voters are double my registered voters.
The population quota does not look at the registered voters, but it looks at the residents. The residents of that particular constituency.
Of this constituency.
Even children, even kids under 1 year.
But registered voters could not be residents because it's not necessary that registered voters are the residents.
There is a direct correlation. There is a very direct correlation
of the residents and
number of registered voters. If a constituency is in a position to register 110,000 registered voters, it means its population
chances are very high,
relatively higher. Than the constituency registering 50,000 registered voters.
But you are missing the point when we say that we have injustices in representation, and that's why Baraza has 8 classes, primary schools, and you have over 200. It is a question of representation. Whether you and the representation must be on the basis of population quota, because that is what the Constitution decrees. So the question we are asking here is, so that we can be able to address your plight and address the plight of any other person who constituency that is beyond the population quota, which member of parliament is ready to lose? For example, there are constituencies in Northeastern where an MP is elected by 5,000 registered members. Is that constituency, should that constituency remain, or should it be offered to you or any other person who needs it?
My friend, if you went to that constituency, let's say Fafi constituency, somewhere, or Mandera North constituency, you split that constituency to 2 instead of killing it.
So how
because of the challenges the locals are facing in terms of representation. The MP is doing like 700 kilometers square.
Agreed.
When another MP is doing 15 kilometers square. Look at Kiaru. Look at, I have a friend of mine called Ndindi Nyoro, and he comes here. He is doing tiles. He has he has built classrooms, he has renovated every classroom. All the schools are modern. Now he has this term he is doing tiling to all his schools. And in my constituency, I still have mud and grass thatched classrooms.
Allow us to
because the money cannot allow me to build all these schools while this very highly populated area, Kiharu, they have very few primary schools because the distances are shorter, and they've managed to develop their schools. Now they are tiling.
Okay.
They've got to another level of development. My students, pupils in my constituency can't even think of tiles. They don't know whether tiles exist in this world.
Allow us to take a short break, and then we come back, get the view of Professor on this very matter as well, an educationist, and would understand the essence of getting it right, even in the question of education, and also the aspects of representation and based on the population in constituencies and equally the areas. Allow us to take this short break, and I know there's still so much, also so much of your feedback that we'll be looking at after that.
Wakati mwingine kama weekend, mimi najiachilia.
Hata ukumbuki hii story.
Nikifika watu wangu wakinipokea na kupokeleka.
Umeset the mood.
Nimeset the mood. Naweza kupokeleka. Nikitumai kwamba mzima popote pale ulipo, nikikukaribisha katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi. Jina langu Elizabeth Mutuku. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kutangamana nao kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Siku nyingine tutapatana papa hapa umjue kiongozi mwingine.
Jiunge nasi toka hapa hadi ufuoni mwa bahari. Meli yetu itakapotua nanga kwa uhondo ribo ya riwaya hii mwisho wa kosa. Monica.
It's early morning in Maralal. Start your morning informed, educated, entertained, and above all, know your country. From the beautiful plains of Samburu County to the skyscrapers of Nairobi, Morning Cafe certainly got you covered. Indeed, a beautiful place to watch and certainly a moment of understanding and knowing your country. Indeed, to the remotest parts of every county. Join me, Linda Alela, every weekday from 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
The diversity of Kenya's wildlife has garnered international fame.
This is pellets that we give to the tourists, the giraffes. We ration because we don't want the giraffes to eat too much of this. We want them to have more of the natural browse.
We may not always get the opportunity to go out to see the wildlife, but you'll never miss the opportunity to see it from the comfort of your couch.
This is home to animals that have been found out there either injured, abandoned.
Jiro, we equally have Mheshimiwa Nimrod Mbai as well as Professor Macharia Munene. And Professor, your view on this very important matter. And you know, when we're talking about the formation of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, we'll be talking about delimitation of boundaries soon and very soon, and also just looking at what the Constitution stipulates in terms of the timelines also as to when we can have these adjustments. Yeah. We are here, and so we can't run away from this very conversation and the concerns that are being raised by representatives themselves. Sometimes we are arguing on grounds where we don't quite understand, but it's clear, it's evident that there is a problem. How do we even begin addressing that?
First of all, it's good that we are talking about it.
Yes.
And admitting that there is a problem.
Yes.
There is an electoral structural challenge. The 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote is a very good idea and should be pursued because that's fair. Now, there are practical problems in the process, and that's why we talk about the adjustments here and there. Say minimum of this and a maximum of this. Trying to fit into that thing, and it needs to be relooked afresh, not emotionally,
right?
But rationally, common sense. And since Mheshimiwa is in Parliament, maybe you can throw a challenge to him when you go there. Propose that you create a committee or a commission to relook at the whole thing afresh. Not just lawyers, because sometimes we make mistakes. I don't mind Ndegwa being there, but you should not say that only Ndegwa.
Exactly.
No, it's a national issue. So get some sober-minded people, Kenyans, and they are there. to relook at the whole thing. Where did we go wrong?
Right.
And not to say that you're coming up with a BBI, because that also has also emotional problems. But say, look, clearly, as you were saying earlier, the Constitution has structural challenges.
Right.
It clearly does. So can we identify those? Somebody, and maybe that's where Parliament can come in. In 1997, see what happened, the APPG. The MPs, irrespective of the position, the party they were in, they ganged up. They were gangsters at the time.
Okay, at that time.
It was led by Moi, Raila, Martha, Kibaki, all the people who were in Parliament. They ganged up against people who are outside there in the streets. Kivuza Kibwana and Widu Mutunga.
Yes.
That's what the APPG was all about.
Yeah.
It was to undermine those people. Anyway, whatever.
This one that we want to have back.
The people are taking power without power.
Yeah.
You know, so, and the elected people say, wait a minute, what's going on? So they patched up, they agreed, let's do this. Pata kidogo, kidogo, kidogo. We sidelines those people. And then after the election, we can have a commission. That's what they did. I'm not saying that you do that, but at least the idea of re-looking at the whole thing and not to leave it to an individual politician somewhere say, I want this, I want, no, you know. Even at Bomas, I remember at Bomas, some shady things were going on there. If you read Yashpal Guy and even PLO Lumumba, some things were really shady in the place. But that is not the issue. The message is that there really is need to relook afresh with clear mind, common sense, most important, just common sense. Not so much legalese, but common sense as to what direction the country is or is not taking. Let me just plug in for Ndidi Nyoro, because I'm from Kiaru. You know, he gets credit. And you are telling that they are tithing the classes. Not all of them, but I think it's a good process.
Step by step.
Step by step. And I think he has done what many MPs have not done.
Which is?
You know, appearing and actually doing things that people like. And yes, there are areas where, for some reason, children have disappeared. in their schools. And there are the discrepancies here and there. But he's very popular because he appears to work to use the CDF well. There are a lot of constituencies with the same money, with the same population.
And not doing much.
And they're not doing much. You know, they say, what happened to you? You are getting this, you know. So, Mheshimiwa, it's not so much the amount of money you get. It is what you do with it. And then how people react to it. And if you go back to the Oloa Ringo principle, to eat his fish without being molested, it's, you know, it's organization, it's management. We give credit for that. There are areas, the impression created is that the MP simply eats the money. And hires his cronies and relatives to be in charge of almost everything. So nothing gets done in the constituency because the MP and cronies and relatives are getting happy in the stomach. And so the constituency remains there. But they are very good at making noise about to pay. These are things, let me maybe sound not very nice. The devolution is good in principle. One of the weaknesses is that it depends on the national government. It is subordinate to the national government, whether we like it or not. Some people say, no. A county cannot be equal to the country. It is subordinate. Not only that, this county depends on the national government. For its resources. In theory, in future, Kitui will have so much money it will be donating to the national government, in theory, once it is built up. But at present, it depends on the national government for everything. And when the national government is broke, as it is right now, the county government is also what?
Yeah.
So we are having this problem. They are saying we have not received money for.
Yeah.
Why haven't you? The country has no money.
Wow.
So we need to devise ways in which counties can make sense.
Can make sense. Devolution
right now,
in itself.
Yeah, devolution can make sense.
Yeah.
It's not an emotional thing that, I heard the other day, some people were saying, we want a county of our own now. Give us another county.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you sit there and say, well, it's a good idea politically, but like Nigerians create states almost every other day.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to go that way?
Certainly.
So that's why I'm saying, you people in Parliament can take the initiative. So we need to relook at this thing.
Yeah.
Soberly, using common sense, not so much emotion, and be fair to the country and to other people.
Okay.
So we borrowed a lot of things from the United States.
Yes.
Some of them bad.
That really do not resonate with the...
They're not working.
Yeah, they're not working. So we need to relook at the whole thing. Even this county, it's tailored to look like the states in the United States.
Much as we say we are not a colony of the states. And the Right Honorable Raila Odinga alludes to that when he is asked of what really played out and whether the senator, he came on board, really contributed to this conversation over truce. Let's come back to the elephant of the room. And I know that one, those ones are things that we need to adjust in the long run. But the elephant in the room and the problem and the trouble that we have today sits right on this very screen as pertaining to the reaction by the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and his team when they say that, instead of calling for a process, instead of calling or focusing on what can be done at the level of Parliament, there's need to call for a similar process as to what played out on the National Accord 2008. And here we are asking ourselves, is there a truce at all? And if it is there, what is there for the people? Or is it just a scenario of what it is that you speak of? It's about two individuals, trying to flex their muscles and their power. And it's a game of show of might.
These two individuals, you cannot just look at it from the perspective of two individuals, because all these individuals have their supporters.
Yes.
And they have the people that they are representing. So when they speak on the masses that have no opportunity to hold such a press conference.
Yeah.
But there are so many individuals who believes that things must be done in the right way. And that's what Professor is saying, that Parliament should not think that they have the monopoly of the ideas and anybody else, because you're not elected, you cannot think. In matter of fact, those guys, the majority of them who are elected are the ones who do not think and don't have the capacity to even to interrogate the things that we are interrogating now.
Yeah.
And those are the moribunds that you want to leave such kind of a serious debate in their hands.
Yeah.
The persons who messed this constitution, don't forget, is the parliamentarians when they met in Naivasha.
Yeah.
They are, and Laikipia, they are the first guys who messed up this constitution by giving us a replica of the American version. Most of the ideas that went through Bomas and most of the ideas that went through the collection of the views did not fight themselves. Because when they went to Naivasha and Laikipia and Kilaguni, what they came up with, actually Laikipia and Naivasha, what they came up with was a document that suited them as politicians, not a document that suits us as Kenyans. Yeah. Because the constitution should have contemplated a scenario like this one. A constitution is an agreement that we have agreed to be governed in this manner. And in the event of a dispute involving this agreement, we shall have this approach. So the approach being proposed by Honorable Raila Odinga is not that we should have an accord that shares power, but the mechanism in which, we should follow the mechanism in which the accord came into being, where we have people, professor, and people outside Parliament meeting to negotiate about these things.
Okay.
Because there are so many fundamental things that that ails this country, that Parliament as a single unit has no capacity to address. Yes. So the National Accord structure is to open up to other individuals with ideas like Professor, like Linda, like any other person with the idea of how things should be done in this country. That's the kind of proposal we are looking at. But when William Ruto says that we should affix ourselves, when the president says that we should affix ourselves to Parliament, he's boxing us, because he knows that Professor and I have no capacity to address Parliament. We have no capacity of our views getting into Parliament. Parliament is guided by strict rules of regulations of the standing orders. How shall we penetrate them? So when they tell us that we can only address these things in Parliament, they are simply saying that we are locked out. Yeah, this country does not belong to the Parliament.
So even if it's open for the people and for
a
other
forum must be found. A forum must be found. A forum must be found.
How much time
the Parliament can facilitate?
Yes.
That's what I'm suggesting to them.
Member of Parliament,
here. Yeah. Because whether we like it or not, the Parliament has a role to play.
Yes.
And in every step that we have taken, all the time, the Parliament has always had a role to facilitate. Whether it's to authorize the commission or the committee, whether it is, so it is given that legal aspect. Although it's not the Parliament going to do it, but the Parliament gives the okay. Even the National Accord, it had to go through it.
Yeah.
You know, for that technicality. So, this evaluation or assessment of the constitution that we are calling for, the entire constitution, and not just a few things, that the Parliament can think in order to create fairness. Right now we are saying there is unfairness, structural unfairness in that constitution. There is electoral unfairness in that constitution. There is this unfairness in that. So how to address that is not simply say the Parliament will do it alone. It needs a really serious thought, common sense, and knowledgeable people, people who have some patriotism in the country.
What are the likelihoods that the president then will open grounds for this?
Well, he
has no choice.
He's a Kenyan, and we assume that he listens, and the president is looking for a way out. Let's not kid ourselves. He's in a fix. So he would like as many ideas as possible of how to deal with the challenges that are coming up. It's not that if he had a way to bulldoze his way, he could, but he's in trouble. So he needs help to come from very many angles as to how to go about it. I think he has goodwill. He just disagrees on how to go and exercise that.
And do you suppose they are hardliners that really are managing how the right...
No, they are people who are very, can we say stubborn to be polite?
Well,
they insist that they are right even when they are wrong. They are right, and it's both camp, because they're advising, assuming they're advising, and they insist why their side is right. Now, the role of an advisor is to give advice, not to decide. So Raila has his team of advisors, some of them very hard-headed.
Yes.
And say, no. Okay? Ruto has also his team of advisors, who are so very what? Hard-headed. Now, it's for each of them, because now they are acting as if they are equal, although they are technically not equal. So for each of them to make a decision based on the advice that he gets. For the president, the same thing. For Raila Odinga, the same thing. Make independent decisions rather than being bound by what the advisors, hardliners or softliners. It's what is in the best interest of the country.
And we'll be coming back to understand some more on that independent decision. But Mheshimiwa, you're at the heart of this. First, as a member of Parliament, where the bipartisan process is to take place, equally a representative of the people and a Kenyan for that very matter, are member of the Kenya Kwanza government. You know, here we are, Just how genuine, first of all, is this approach by the president, that is for purposes of sobriety and acknowledging the fact that constitutionally he is to guarantee us the aspect of sobriety, being the president, the symbol of unity. I mean, where do we stand as a people as far as this process is concerned, as far as the interest of the Kenya Kwanza government is, as far as the interest of the people is?
Linda, there's a question I asked from the beginning, and I wanted to hear what Wakil had to say, and he never responded to it.
Yeah.
We are a country ruled by the rule of law. We are a country ruled by institutions. We have the presidency. Leave alone the name of the person who occupies the office. We have parliament. Leave alone the names of the people who occupy the offices. We have judiciary. Leave alone the names, justice who and who. Judiciary will be there and has always been there. Then we have these other players who are not anywhere in the constitution. And they are giving demands.
Yeah.
For heaven's sake, from where I sit as Nimrod, I don't feel they should be given that leeway, or even if they are going to get a leeway, they should not get so much leeway to stop the country from moving.
And when you say these ones that are not in the constitution, what exactly do you mean? Because my assumption then would be these ones are Kenyans, and therefore, in their own rights, they are in the constitution as people who enjoy sovereignty.
But it has to be channeled through a certain process, through a certain institution. You see, it's either if you are going to do it through the popular initiative, there is a way to coin the popular initiative, then come up with the institution that drives that popular initiative, and that institution should be guided by the constitution. Now we are talking of looking at the president. As the president of the country, and as we know what the country was going on in the last 2 weeks, out of his wisdom, he thought it was not fair for him and sit and wait for the country to burn, for businesses to stop, for things not to go the right way. And from his wisdom, and maybe his advisors, throws a spanner to the works. And he said, we need, from where we are now, we have this side which is complaining, and we have the side of the government, and both sides are represented in Parliament. Let them go back to, let's take this process back to Parliament. Let it be bipartisan.
How much goodwill, and also like what the president was asked, we are talking about numbers, and he says it's not about the numbers, but deep down we understand the importance of numbers when it comes to such processes in Parliament.
When you look at bipartisanship,
bipartisan approaches,
bipartisan approach, the results of a bipartisan approach get support not based on your party. If you look at the dictionary, whatever makes it bipartisan is it requires support without having your partisan interest in it. So if we've agreed, this is how we are going to face the electoral injustice systems, the one we are alleging. Kenya Kwanza, Azimio, members of parliament or leadership should now shed off their positions and their hardline positions and support the process and the results of the process without partisan positions.
What happens to this process that had already gone to the level of us getting a select panel already?
Select panel?
The one that is on already, that we all agree has gone through the process that is legal, and they had even begun, looking into the individuals that had already presented their names for, consideration.
A bill was brought to Parliament.
Yes.
Or now, because it was very clear, IBC was no more. There is no single commissioner, and the country could not say without IBC, because elections are done every time. We can lose a member of parliament, we can lose a senator, and an election has to be run.
We have lost one already, a member of parliament.
And for that to be run, there has to be a commission. So, in the wisdom of parliament, which is supposed to initiate that process, a bill came to parliament, it was passed, the president signed, and several bodies of several constitutional and basically independent bodies were given the task of appointing members to a team that will now recruit commissioners. The Parliamentary Service Commission, which is bipartisan, it has members from both sides. The Public Service Commission, which is independent, an independent body. The Judicial Service Commission, which is an independent body. The Law Society of Kenya, which its membership is all the lawyers in this country who have, in a way, a lot of subscribing to the LSK. To produce one member, then these members sit and come up with the parameters, qualifications and everything, then place an ad for application for these positions. Then people will apply, and now they will shortlist, go ahead and interview people. Then
and this process we have gone through.
Linda,
this process we have gone through.
Those processes are not the issue.
This process has gone through. But one of the things, Azimio Maandamanos were challenging is that process. And they said, in a way, the sitting president has a leeway to control this process, has a leeway to get a commissioner from the Parliamentary Service Commission who is pro the president, has a leeway to get a commissioner from the Public Service Commission who is pro the president. The president has a leeway to get a commissioner from the Judicial Service Commission, which is so the president has a leeway of forming a committee which is more of the president than the country. And this brings in the issue which Ruto had brought up in Bomas, where one team is selecting the referee for a certain tournament. So when this was challenged, Ruto came out and said, yes, it's not about who is right or who is wrong. The issue of electoral injustice, from where I sit, it's one of the things that needs to be looked into. And because it's Parliament who had originated the process, I will take it back to them, and I beseech them to apply a bipartisan approach.
Professor then says...
Now, this bipartisan approach is what the other party has said, no, the bipartisan approach is not fair enough. What we need, we will need another body to supervise the parliamentary bipartisan team. For heaven's sake, people have been elected by the electorates. We've come to parliament. We've selected the best of the members we have to aid the bipartisan approach. Then you wake up and say, you want another body which is not within the constitution, formed from Maandamano and the rest, to supervise members who have been elected by the people and are sitting in the offices legally. Don't you feel this is too much to ask?
A bipartisan approach involving the agreement or cooperation of two political parties that usually oppose each other's policies. The reforms received considerable bipartisan approval. And Mheshimiwa, before I come to you, Akili, Prof was saying something that really is, this is not largely about the process that Mheshimiwa alludes to. What is it about?
Egos.
Okay.
Political egos.
The type of Salva Kiir and Riek Machar.
Allow me to say something. Allow me to say something before Prof says it. You know, when we talk of egos, and we are talking of the president, as in, and when things go haywire, we say the buck stops with the president. So in a way, the president can't keep quiet when all this is going on. He has to do something. Is either he comes out like the way he came out, or he uses force, considerable force, to deal with Maandamano, or he calls Parliament to do something, or he takes something to the judiciary to be advised by the judiciary. Where is the president's ego coming in when he is doing his work?
Perhaps
the president is doing his work.
I've answered that question.
The president is bound to doing something about the country by the fact of his office. So where is, I feel we need to exempt the president from this word ego. The people driven by ego is the people who lost elections and they want to inform the route the country is going to take.
Okay. He just said, Prof.
Mheshimiwa is very good at defending the president.
Okay. He's a foot soldier, so it is allowed.
He's a good soldier. It's allowed.
He's even defending where
it's quite in order.
Yeah.
You know, in this thing. But we are looking at the political reality.
Right.
These two gentlemen, the president and the former prime minister, they know each other very well. They've been together in the trenches, different trenches, since the 1990s. When they were both serving Moi, even as ministers in Moi's cabinet. They know each other. They are almost equal in terms of voter following. Okay? The president won the election very narrowly. Could have gone either way. He's aware of that. You know, I think he's conscious of that fact. And he said it, that it was very close. He's slightly ahead, but the other side has almost equal number. And he cannot ignore that. You know, there are people in his camp who might want him, see, we won. What else? Okay? What else? But then the political reality is, yes, he won. But the ground, those 6 or so million people who voted for Raila, many of them will do whatever Raila wants. Whatever he wants. And not all of them.
Many.
But many. But even if it's only 500,000 of them, who do whatever he wants, irrespective of what. As president, he has to look into that matter. There's no question. For Raila, it's an ego thing. He lost the election according to the system. According to the rules which he helped to formulate. Even the commission and all those things. According to the selection panels that was approved by the last parliament. Or is it this parliament? Who signed that law? So whatever it is, yet he's a politician. And the most effective political operator Kenya has seen for a long time. When you compare with all the others, he begins to stand out as a very effective political operator. The rules are not the issue. It is Raila. What is his position at a particular time? And then the people who are egging him on, who are they and why? So in the process, the ego comes in. How can you? Like if we had right, they agreed on Sunday to do certain things. Then this morning we are hearing that they say, no, it has not gone the way I want it. Say, wait a minute. So you say, what can that be? It's an ego problem. And so the president goes to Kigali and he says, this cannot be done. Because we are going to do it this way. Why? So you have the egos playing at each other. And the bottom line is the country ends up suffering. In the last few weeks, the country has gone through underdevelopment. It's actually underdeveloped because of all the damage that has been caused in terms of productivity and in terms of losses. That's underdevelopment. And it is affecting the country. So how these two people can be persuaded, please lower your egos a little bit, just lower a little bit, so that the country can move forward, is the big challenge. The idea of Kofi Annan type of thing, I don't think we're in that scenario. But it's a thought, and that's why going back to Mheshimiwa and his colleagues in Parliament, maybe they can come up with some ways, considerations that would help. But we cannot ignore the political power play here. whatever excuses are given. Yeah.
Here we are. Wakili, close it for us.
Thank you very much, Linda. First of all, before we close, permit me to wish our viewers a happy Easter and also tell them that the options of Article 37 has not been waived.
Yeah.
Right Honorable Raila.
You people are threatening us so much.
No, it's not a threat.
It's a reality
of addressing the plight